today we're combining lessons 4.11 and 4.12 because they have the same learning goal, okay? What that means for you is that in your workbook, you have 2 whole lessons worth of practice problems. We will not be doing all of them in class, but you will have lots of opportunities to help you practice for your test, which is when? This Friday. Your mid-module will cover 4.1 all the way to 4.12. So this is the last lesson that you need before you're ready to take your mid-module. Okay, and your learning goal for these 2 lessons is I can solve and create word problems involving fractions. In your problem today, it says 2 less than 1/3 of the product of 6/4 and 1/8. So just like we talked about yesterday, if I said 2 less than 3, would it be 2 minus 3? No. It'd be 3 minus 2. So if it's 2 less than something, does that have to come at the beginning or at the end? So we're going to save this for the end, 2 less than. Okay, we'll save that for later. What about 1/3 of? If I'm finding 1/3 of something, it's 1/3 of means what? Times. Now it's 1/3 of what? The product of 6/4 and 1/8. So what's the product? 2 things multiplied together. So it's 6/4 and 8. But I'm finding 1/3 of that whole thing. So how can I show that I'm finding 1/3 of that whole thing? Brian? Adding parentheses. Now, am I trying to find 1/3 of the product of 6/4 and 1/8? No, I'm trying to find 2 less than that. So how can I show that I'm finding 2 less than that? I have to subtract 2 at the end. Okay, so that would be your expression. And it's color coordinated. So the 2 less than is this black part. 1/3 is the red part. And the product of 6/4 and 8 is the blue part. Do you see how that works? Okay, so on your math test and in life, you need to be able to read these words and translate them into a math expression. Whenever we solve word problems, we use the RDW strategy. What does R stand for, everyone? Read. That means we have to read and understand the problem. What does D stand for? Draw. That means you have to draw a tape diagram. Is it a choice? No. What does W stand for? Write. That means you write out your thinking, you show your thinking, and you write your answer, making sure that you've labeled your answer and you've checked to see if it is simplest form. Many times we're forgetting that last part of the W. So in this question, we're trying to figure out what fraction of the box is left after we know that one person ate 3/8 of it and another person ate 1/4 of it, and altogether there was 16 ounces. Okay. So now that we've read and understood the problem, what do we need to do next? D, which is draw. Let's draw a tape diagram. So if this is the entire box of cereal, how many ounces are in the entire box of cereal? 16. Okay. Now, what fraction did Kim eat? Kim ate 3/8 of it, so we can label it and draw it like that. Courtney, I'll call her Court, ate 1/4 of it. What about this part over here? That's what's left over. Okay, so now that we draw a tape diagram, we can show. By the way, is it asking me how many ounces are left, or what fraction is left? So should we say that we're starting with 16 ounces, or should we say that we're starting with 1 whole box? Yeah. Why would we need it to say 16 ounces? We would only need to say 16 ounces if we're trying to figure out how many ounces are left. But since it's asking us what fraction, should your answer be a fraction or a number of ounces? Fraction. So if we started with 16 ounces, that'll tell us how many ounces are left, but not what fraction is left. Does that make sense? Okay. So how can we figure out how much is left? Well, we have to take 1 whole box and subtract the amount Kim ate, right? And subtract the amount Courtney ate, and then we'll be left with what's over. Do you agree? We can also add up how much Kim and Courtney ate all together to find out the total of this part and subtract that total from 1. Do you agree? Let's do it that way. So because I can see that 5/8 was eaten all together, how many 8s are in a whole? Okay, this was the whole box. And I have to take away the amount that was eaten. So how much is left? 3/8. And the units would be of the box. Now what if I wanted to find out how many ounces were left over? If I know that 3/8 of the box was left and the entire box was how many ounces? 16. So I could take 3/8 of the box but instead of the box, what is the box? I can replace that with 16 ounces. So if I want to find out how many ounces are left, I can find out how much is in 3/8 of 16 ounces. Do you agree? We know the word of means what? Multiply. So what we're really finding is 3/8 times 16. How can I write that as one fraction? Ani? Okay. Do we have multiple fact families that are the same? That's the same as 3 times 2 times 8 over 8. So I can cross those out, replace them with ones. So how many ounces are left? 6 ounces. Okay, so I want you to turn and talk to your partner. What's the difference between the second part of the problem, where the answer was 6 ounces, and the first part of the problem, where the answer was 3/8 of the box? So we have to be careful here. When it says half of it, they used half of 18, which is not 1/2 of a pint. A very common mistake people will make is they will subtract half a pint from 18 to figure out how much they used for the flames. That is not correct. Instead, what we need to do is we need to first figure out what is half of 18. How can I figure out what is half of 18? I can write 1/2 of 18, which is the same as 1/2 times 18, right? Which is the same as 18 times 1 over 2, which is what? 9. So over here, we can show here that they used 9 pints for the flames. And similarly, what fraction did they use? Did they use 1/3 pints for the sparks? They used 1/3 of what? 1/3 of 18 for the sparks, which is the same as 1/3 times 18, which is the same thing as 1 times 18 over 3, which is 6. Very good. So mark that off. Then they use 6 pints for the sparks. If they use 9 pints for the flames and 6 pints for the sparks, how much did they use up altogether so far?
15 pints.
15 pints, because 9 plus 6 is 15. So how much do they have left over? 3 pints. How much do they need for their next project? 7 3/4 pints. If they only have 3 pints left, do they have enough? No, let's draw another tape diagram. So we can show that what they need is 7 3/4 pints. Okay. How much do they have? They have 3 pints. And so what they need still is 7 3/4 minus 3. Do you see that? So how much more do they need? 4 3/4 pints is what they need. So one classmate wrote, what? Gage and Sable each, Gage had $8 and Sable had $12. They used 4/5 of it to buy a water bottle. How much money do they have left? Would this fit the situation?
Yes.
Because you're adding how much the two friends had, 8 plus 12, and they used 4/5. So what fraction do they have left? They have 1/5 of their total, right? So it's 1/5 of the sum of 12 plus 8. Do you agree? Okay. Here's another one. Mia and Myra are friends. Mia's mom gives her $12 and her dad gives her $8. Mia's allowance is 1/5 of Myra's. How much is Mia's allowance? Would that be correct as well? Yes. Very good. So your story problems can take on many different forms, but they need to fit this situation. How would we draw a tape diagram to model this situation? Well, we would have the entire piece of tape is the sum of 12 plus 8, but we don't want the whole thing. We only want a fraction of it. What fraction of it do we want? So we have to split the whole thing into how many units? 5 units, and show that we're trying to find 1 unit. Okay, very good.